Hey folks, it's your pal Mike Shea from slyflourish.com and twitter.com/slyflourish here with another episode of Sly Flourish's Lazy DM Prep. This is a weekly series in which I go through the steps from Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master while preparing for my Sunday D&D game. In this case, I am running the game Ghosts of Saltmarsh. This show is brought to you by the backers of Sly Flourish on Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/slyflourish, you too can back the show. The money that comes in from backers helps pay for this show, helps pay for equipment. Most recently helped me pay for a rather large server move in which I moved all of the Sly Flourish websites. There's a whole bunch of websites, actually. Sly Flourish and D&D blogs and D&D tweets and a bunch of underlying services that all got moved to a new server. And that was all possible based on the money that we got from Patreon. So I want to thank everybody for doing that. What else? What other news? Any other updates? Not so much. One of the things I'm going to be trying out, I was trying it out a little bit this morning, is the idea of a lazy DM minute clinic. So the idea here is there are times where I am sitting around not doing anything. And I thought, what if I was to drop into Discord and mention it on Twitter and say, hey, I have a Discord channel. Why don't we come on in and we'll talk about your game? So instead of me blathering on about what's going on in my Saltmarsh game, you can come to the Minute Clinic and talk about your game and talk about any issues that you got or talk about problems that you have or just talk about interesting things that have happened. So I dropped in this morning. It was pretty early. It was like 7:30 in the morning on Sunday, so not a lot of people there. But Richard Green, a writer for Kobold Press that is working on Empire of the Ghouls, he dropped in. So we got to talk a lot about Empire of the Ghouls. That was very cool. So yeah, anyway, it's not going to be at any regular time because there's just no way I can fit another regularly scheduled activity into my week. But if you watch Twitter, if you follow me on Twitter, there will be times where I'll drop in and I'll say, hey, the Lazy DM Minute Clinic is open. And we can drop in and we can talk about all kinds of things. So I'd be interested to hear what people have to say about that and see if that's something that's interesting. That's an experiment. Satine Phoenix, a D&D luminary and former social media manager for Wizards of the Coast, and now runs her own company. I think she ran it before she did that, but anyway. So she had a really interesting idea. She was on an interview show with James Intercasso and talked about the idea of sort of small creative experiments that instead of kind of building entire new enterprises that are going to take significant amount of time and money, instead it is more useful and interesting and probably more successful to try lots of different things. So I thought, try lots of different things and try them in small scale. So instead of setting up a whole new podcast, do one show, right? Instead of doing a whole new video series, do a 5-minute video. Try something out. Just try an experiment. And we have so many capabilities now that are backed by billions of dollars that we can use, like Twitch and like YouTube and like Twitter and everything else, which, they have their own problems, no doubt. But there's also opportunities there for us to try things out. So one of the things I thought I'd try out was Discord. I'm not really a big Discord guy, and I'd like to get into it more. I see more and more there are people who sorry, I'm distracted by my dashboard. There was an alert about a new dashboard. More and more people are using Discord to play D&D online. That's something I don't do, and I'm just not used to D&D. I'm used to D&D. I'm not used to Discord. So anyway, I thought that the Lazy DM Minute Clinic might be a fun thing to try out. So keep an eye on Twitter for that, and we will see where that goes. But today we are going to talk about Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and in particular, we're going to talk about I think it is chapter 4, Salvage Operation. We started our discussion about Salvage Operation in the last episode, and this episode we're going to be talking about where the characters currently are and sort of the latter half of Salvage Operation, which has a very interesting take. So Salvage Operation is a small adventure when you compare it to some of the other ones. We got lots of people here in chat. He's Not Your Problem is here. John Riz 18 is here. Dracola 69 is here. Carl Coleman 88 is here. Smith Boswell is here. Great. Good to see everybody. Glad you're all here. Glad you were all able to join me today. So Salvage Operation is a smaller adventure than the other ones, and it is not part of the whole Sinister Secret trilogy. Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh, Danger at Dunwater, and Final Enemy are sort of the core spine of the 7 adventures that exist in Ghost of Saltmarsh. This one is separate, and it was written at a very different time. It was written by Mike Mearls in the 2000s, I think. Let's take a look here. 2005. And but it's a very, as I mentioned in the last episode, it's a very reskinnable adventure. And art is fantastic, by the way. I just love that ship. Although I think the description of the ship says that the mast is gone, and then there's the mast, so there's that. But whatever. So yeah, so it's a very, I mentioned that it's a very reskinnable adventure. So the core of the adventure is the characters find out, and the adventure has very particular, has particularities for these things that I'm gonna gloss over, but I'm gonna talk about why those aspects are reskinnable. So you find out that there's an old ship that everyone thought was sunk that's actually sitting out in the sea. A rich person tells the characters, hey, I've got something out there I want to get. If you go out there and get it, I'll give you some money. The characters go out to the ship. They get on board the ship. They crawl through the ship. They find the thing. They face a boss. They find the chest that contains the thing that the nobles wanted. They find a boss, and then a giant octopus attacks the ship, and you have to get off the ship and escape before the giant octopus wrecks the ship completely. So it's a nice, clean, sort of dungeon crawly sort of adventure where you start on the top of the ship and you work your way down. You get multiple choices about how you're going to approach a ship. That's really great. Not quite as like that open situation of you have to attack a pirate ship. This one's a little bit more expectation that you're going to go from the top and work your way down. Yeah, so it's a dungeon crawl, 2 or 3 levels down, and then once you get down and you get the thing, then it's getting the hell off of the ship. So what I like about this adventure in particular is how reskinnable it is. You can decide what's in that box and change that around. So that changes the whole hook about why the characters would go to the ship in the first place. You can change the history of the ship. So it can be either a merchant vessel that was well known to the people of Saltmarsh, or it could be a pirate vessel or a smuggling vessel. You get to decide what it is, and that can be you can base that decision on the character backgrounds and the current part in the story of Saltmarsh, however you want to do it. You can change the boss that's on it. In the adventure, it is a half-orc druid of Loth, which is kind of interesting, but like a druid of Loth doesn't really fit much of the rest of the theme of the campaign, so I'm changing it to a Great Old One patron warlock patron Great Old One, warlock of the Great Old One, that is connected to the Chain God, to Thar-Zadun. Spoilers. And that way it ties in well with some of the other adventures that come up. Tamarot's Fate and The Styes are the final 2 adventures in this series. Not the final. Yeah, the final 2. So I want to have a big kind of Thar-Zadun Chained God sort of theme for those final adventures. And I can tie those all together by reskinning the Cleric of Loth into a Great Old One warlock. So you can reskin him. You can reskin the box, you can reskin the ship, you can reskin the boss, and you can reskin the monster that attacks the ship. So in my Wednesday game, for example, so in the book, it's a giant octopus. And in the in my Wednesday game, it is an acid kraken. And it is an acid kraken because one of the players, after they captured the main ship, what's it called? The Sea Ghost. After they captured the Sea Ghost, they were hit by a wizard who fired an acid arrow through the side. And when they were repairing it, people were like, what did you do to this ship? And they said, oh, we were attacked by an acid kraken. And everyone's like, wow, an acid kraken. I haven't heard of one of those. And then later, they were actually attacked by an acid kraken. And of course, they're like, of course we're attacked by an acid kraken. And the acid kraken is also like an avatar of Thar-Zadun. In this one of the characters, Bleth, has a background, which is a whale ate her parents. So in this case, it is a whale that is attacking the ship. Although I was thinking about it today, and I was like, the problem is that like I've got a kraken miniature, and there's tentacles. Like that doesn't really fit a whale. And I was like, what if the whale is a warlock of the Great Old One? Like, what if this I love like reskinning monsters, and in particular, I'm getting excited about mashing 2 monsters together. What if it is a whale? But it's a whale that is also touched and has the warlock capabilities of a Great Old One warlock. and that way it can cast tentacles, right? Evard's black tentacles and all kinds of tentacle spells as a whale, right? And I'm like, I think that's pretty great. So that way they can see tentacles. The tentacles can still attack the ship, but it is a far realm whale, as Giblix says. Ancient skin carved. Yeah, right. Exactly. Snark Knight. Everybody's on board with this. Snark Knight says its ancient skin is carved with the runes like a book of shadows. I am going to just steal that directly and put that right into my secrets and clues for today's game, because that is a great secret and clue. They will see that, and it's called the Black Death. The Black Death's ancient skin is covered with runes like a book of shadows. That is sweet. Yes, let me switch over to my other screen there. So there's the secrets. So in last week's game, they, what did they do? They, found out from the council that they were going after the ship. They sort of prepared the ship to go out to sea. They knew from Anders Solmar that Anders is particularly interested in them finding this ship. And they're starting to get questions like, how does he know about it? And it's like lost. And they got a lot of clues that like the ship and the storm. The ship and the storm are surround an ancient island with a monolith on it, tied to the chained god. That's been there for 500,000 years. So they learned about that from a piece of lore. I wrote up a story, a little one-page story about the captain of the ship and how they landed on this mysterious island. I stole it just directly from Dagon, and it was so close that, in fact, one of my players was like, "Is that from Dagon?" I was like, "A little bit." So if you've ever read the Lovecraft story Dagon, it's a very short story. You can read it in 20 minutes. And it's a wonderful story about a mysterious island with ancient idols on it and weird creatures. And that is the island that I'm putting, this mysterious island that's out there above the endless nadir, which is this like hole in the world that it ties the abyss to the world. That there's an island there, and on that island is this giant monolith, this giant obelisk that has been there for 500,000 years, and it twists monsters into abominations. So that is kind of a big theme, and the story mentioned that theme, and the characters in the last game found that theme out. They figured that out and got the note and read it, and one of the players read it aloud. So it was a little long. You try to keep your text a little short, but I don't know. I tried cutting it as much as I could, and there was too many good things in there. Since the beginning of time written, yeah, that's not bad. But that could be like 500 years. Yeah, I get your point, which is like, how the hell did they know if it's 500,000 years old or not? But I don't know. I like to say that it's older than any of the societies that exist on any part of the planet, right? And it's way older than any conscious entity had existed here, and yet it was still there, and it was still twisting monsters. Hot and thirsty in my basement. They did a ground research sample. Yeah, I usually describe it as like there's a, you can look at the rock around it and see that the rock has overtaken the obelisk, that it is as old as the rock that's around it, and that rock must have been here forever, right? I don't even know really much about the history of Greyhawk and like how far back its history goes and stuff like that, so it's hard to say. So what else? So they went on the ship. They crawled going through the back. Let me pull this up here. Find my map. Yeah, so here's the map. They started on the forecastle on the right-hand side. They went down, I think they went down through both sides, but ended up going from Area 3 to Area 6, and went down the stairs from Area 3 to Area 4, and then in Area 4, the door opened and a bunch of Varghouls zipped out. Let's take a look at the Varghoul. 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 Let's take a look at the Varg Forget how Vargul is spelled. Man, I think I had it in here. I got a link somewhere in here. Yeah, there we go. Yay. Yeah, so not, wow, they're challenge 1, which is pretty high. Oh, because of the poison damage. 5 piercing, 10 poison on a bite. Kiss 1 incapacitated is 12 charisma, third become cursed. Curses 1 point of charisma after each hour as its head takes on a fiendish aspect. The curse doesn't advance while the target is in sunlight. Where when the cursed target's charisma becomes 2, it dies and its head tears from its body, becoming Vargul. Nice. So I think they're going to get attacked by a bunch of these things. Probably 4 or so. Vargul shrieks. Each human within able to hear most of the DC 12 and say they'll be frightened until the end of the Vargul's next turn. Frightened and stunned. Yeah. 4 of these guys is pretty hard. The characters are level 4, I think. So, yeah. So one of these per character is slightly less than... I guess that's about equal to a hard challenge, using my little math, head math for counterbalance of 1/4. A monster is equal to a character when its CR is 1/4 the character's level. Below 5, and it's about half after 5. 5th level and above, a monster is roughly equivalent to a single character when its level is half the challenge rating of a monster, or half the challenge rating of a character. Yeah, so I'm going to throw the Varguls attacked. There was like a great, I remember the picture of the previous Varguls. How do you spell it? Vargul. I thought the original picture of the Vargul had like all the guts and stuff hanging out of the bottom. Maybe they banned that picture from the internet. Maybe I'm thinking of a different creature. I don't think so. Pretty cool. So yeah, they're going to get attacked by Varguls. We're going to do that Theater of the Mind style. And that's the strong start, right? So I already have, okay, let's try to do things in an organized fashion according to the steps from Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. So let's start by taking a look at our characters. We have, and I think they're all here today. I think all my players are here today. We have Mac, played by Jerry, who is a Goliath Grave Cleric, smuggler from the jungles of Monmerg, worshipper of Weejas. Mac works for Kreb Schenker in the Empty Nest and knows Andrew Solmar, was a former smuggler for the Blackspire Confederacy, which broke up. Served in the Lady's Grace with Thurvin, has a red skull tattoo. Molly of the Silver is his Silver Raven, gave his blood to Zolek. We have Bleth, human paladin Procan, Ink Black Whale, ate her parents. That's the Black Death. Threw herself in the drop at Skylar Cotter. She was raised by Farron in the Temple of Procan. She is a dock ward for Andrew Solmar. We have Skylar, Brian, Aarakocra, Storm Cleric, knows Welgar Brinehan, saved Bleth from throwing herself off the cliff. Brought both Dave and Corvell to Welgar when they came ashore, and wears a cloak of protection. That is, and that they already know is from Ayuz. We have Corvell, Joe, a human fighter, fisher who got knocked in the head during bad fishing days, and now he proselytizes the god Zygag. He and Dave both serve to Ida Oland, and Ida pays Dave a stipend to take care of Corvell. We have Dave, a Triton monk and fisher, saved Corvell during the fishing expedition in which Corvell was nearly killed, brought Corvell to Welgar Brinehands, knows of the Endless Nadir, a deep section of the ocean that seems like a tear in the fabric of the world. And we have Thurvin, a sea elf, half-sea elf storm sorcerer, served in the same ship as Max, saved Max's life, met Farron, and the Lady's Grace was the name, and it was sunk by the Black Whale. So those are our characters, and this is important because I want to tie the boss to one of the characters. But our strong start is Vargul attack. And then something big. Something big hits the ship. So, real easy to do a strong start. So, going through the steps of Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. One is review the characters. We did that. Next one is what's a strong start. And I have it easy because I had the Vargul's attack at the end of the last game. So I knew exactly where it was going to begin. And nothing like having a bunch of stunning, shrieking, biting, cursing creatures to start the game. If I was going to be I'm probably going to put 5 of these. Because they only have 13 hit points. Like, they're going to drop pretty fast. They They have resistance to cold, lightning, and fire. I think it would be the kind of thing where like they can blow them away if they target themselves, but they can't. They could probably hit 3 of them with like an area attack, but I don't think they can hit all 5. And the idea that they would die that fast. Oh, I think one of them is going to the stunning Vargul's stunning streak. So that's where we begin. I'm not going to worry about, well, I mean, scenes, so it's pretty easy, right? Vargul attack, and probably, crawling the ship and then facing the boss. We're going to come to that boss and then escape, and return to Saltmarsh. Cat pulling my tarp down. So pretty straightforward. I'll tell you one thing, which is when you have a lot of characters who either fly or swim, the idea of getting attacked by a giant octopus and then escaping the ship is not nearly as hard. Hello, kitty. Come on up. My cat will come up. There she goes. There's a kitty. Flop. Everybody gets to enjoy my cat. That is Maliki, named after the goddess in D&D. So let's see. Oh, questions. French pronunciation. The French pronunciation is Vargul is not correct. How is Vergelli? What's the pronunciation? Step Back History is here. Hello. Varguls instead of spiders. Players like the octopus took the whole evening for them to escape. Instead of another enemy, have the rotting floorboards and stuff from the boat fall down, giving you as the DM control depending on how easy or hard the PCs have it. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity to modify this and make things easy or hard and have characters, and that will all sort of happen dynamically. I've been thinking a lot about Robin Laws's Hamlet's hit points. Let's see if we can find that. Hamlet's hit points. Hamlet's hit points. Available on Amazon. For Kindle for $7. So good enough. So Robin Laws has a book where he talks about beats and scene transitions in RPGs in particular. And there's sort of like the easy and hard version of it. The easy version is that Varguel, yeah. The easy version is that most scenes either have like an upward beat, a neutral beat, or a downward beat. Something good happens, the scene moves on, or something bad happens. And drama is caused by oscillating your upward and downward beats. Upward beats and downward beats and upward beats and downward beats are better than all downward or all upward. All upward and people get bored because it's just too easy. All downward and it's too depressing. So you really want to shake up your upward and downward beats. And you want to do it in your D&D game. And you can do so dynamically. And there's lots of like little easy dirty tricks to increasing or decreasing upward or downward beats. The characters get a buff. Monsters run away. These are upward beats. Monsters die faster than you expected. Someone helps you out. A magic item gains a power you didn't expect. You discover something. A wall breaks through and reveals an area where you can, an area opens up that you can rest. So there's lots of different. There's the other kitty. That's Carson because he's a tuxedo. He's named after the butler in Downton Abbey. Oh, there he goes. They're huge, by the way. I don't know if you saw them in earlier videos. There were tiny little things, and now they're giant cats. No one told me they'd turn into giant cats. So oscillating your upward and downward beats is important to keep your D&D game going, and you don't know how they're going to work out while you're preparing. So you kind of need to be prepared to increase or decrease the threats, or not just decrease the threats, but increase the upward beats and increase the downward beats depending on how things go. If they're having a really easy time, you want to make life a little harder. If they're having a really hard time, you want to make life easier. And as a friend of mine made a very clear point, which is it's not always the same for all the players. Like some players could be having a great time and other players could be having a miserable time, and you got to figure out how to balance these other beats. So it's the sort of thing to keep an eye on. Hamlet's hit points also gets into all of the different types of scenes that exist, transition scenes and reveal scenes and all these other things. And I can't keep all those in mind. So I really focus more on just upward and downward beats and keep that in my head. And it's a relatively simple idea of like, if things feel hard, what can you drop in there that makes life a little easy? I think we do this naturally. I think like as we run D&D games and as we become better storytellers, we kind of naturally know how to increase or decrease, how to increase upward beats or increase downward beats, make life easier or harder. But sometimes it helps to think about the sorts of things. So that idea that Giblix had of could the floorboards rot and could the ship collapse? Yeah, those are examples of like downward beats, things that could happen where you're like, oh man, seriously? And then upward beats would be like, a hole opens up in the ship or a shine of sunlight shows an escape hatch or, you finding an item or a relic that can help you suddenly, or an NPC who's like, I know a way out. So there's all kinds of different ways. Two cats are wrestling. So it's not a bad idea to have some upward and downward beats in mind. Maybe we'll think about those in our prep today. Let's see. I'm playing Tomb of Annihilation. Sorry if this is off topic. How did everyone introduce side quests and different groups while everyone was deep in the jungle? I would have them discover them. A lot of times I would have, when I was running Tomb of Annihilation, I would run a random encounter, and then I would have the faction show up as part of the random encounter, even if they're dead. So one thing is like you can have lots of discoveries in the jungle of Tomb of Annihilation after they're already killed. So I had like former members of the Flaming Fist were found after they died, right? And maybe they were the corpses that were then found around another random encounter like the vampire vines or whatever. So little hints and tricks. I always default back to the idea of secrets and clues. What, if you want to introduce some factions, how do you create secrets and clues based on those factions? And then you drop them in when they suddenly find them. So if you want to introduce like the Red Wizards and you want to introduce the Tabaxi group that they find in Omu or any other groups, you can sort of drop them in by having little hints. Maybe they run into the Grungs and the Grungs mention the fact that there were some evil wizards that came through and killed a whole bunch of Grungs until they fled. So stuff like that. Let's see. Are there any immediate obvious adjustments you would make to the checklist if you were tailoring it exclusively for homebrew campaigns where the DM is generating all of the adventure plot and content? That's a very good question, and I actually wrote an article about this. Let's go to Sly Flourish, and we can do a search here. And what was that for? Homebrew? Do a search for homebrew. Choosing the right, look at that, number 2. I'm going to paste this into chat. So choosing the right steps from the Lazy DM checklist is an article I wrote back in May in which I talk about which steps are most likely to fit various kinds of campaigns. And I think the first one might be the one that you described. This was from D.W. Gill, Dwiggle. DW Gill, I don't know how to pronounce it. Are there any immediate obvious adjustments you make to the checklist if you were tailoring for homebrew campaigns where the DM is generating all of the adventure? Yeah, and so that is, according to my survey, that's the number one kind of game people are playing when they play D&D. They're playing homebrew, long-form campaigns. So the question is which steps make sense? And I would argue that the 8 steps... This is one where all 8 steps are likely to be of help. And there are times where you don't need to do all 8 steps each session because this you kind of already may have prepared early on. I think what I say here is all 8 steps generally fit. So then I guess the other part of your question though, which isn't covered by the article, is are there any other steps that I would take for a homebrew? And the hard part is I generally don't run homebrew campaigns. So certainly the idea of the, and this is in one of the other chapters of Return. Let's take a look. Let's bring up Return here. And there's a couple of things. Let's see. Preparing for your game. Building a Lazy Campaign, chapter 16 on page 47. And it talks about a spiral campaign, which is really like keep your lens focused on what's right around your characters right now. Continue to use the checklist. You can build your campaign hook, like why are people running this, like what's the current theme? And I like to keep it pretty simple so players remember it. What are the 6 truths of your world is a big thing that I really enjoy. What makes your campaign different? This is if you're just starting off in your campaign. But it can help, even if you're in a campaign, kind of helping to define what makes this campaign different than others. Defining fronts. What are the major activities, a front could be a bad guy, a front could be weather, a front is any sort of plot that is kind of working against the characters. I like to have about 3 going at any given time. And, I focus on what the front is, what the goal is, and there's examples in here. What's the front, what's the goal, and what are the 3 grim portents? And then I like to get in the heads of the villains. Like what I'm thinking about is like, what are the villains doing right now? So that's kind of outside the 8 steps. But generally, when you're running each session, I think a big one for a home campaign is to remember to focus on that next session. Because the reality is you probably have a lot of big ideas. This is going to be a harsh statement, and some people will argue with me about this, and that's fine. Not all of us have the right answers all the time. Not all of us have the right answers at any time. A lot of us, when we're building a home campaign, have really big thoughts and big scopes and big feelings, and we draw big maps and we have lots of big stuff. But the reality is, in our next session, that stuff's not likely to come up. So instead, it's what is, I think narrowing our focus down to the next session and letting the world get developed through those 10 secrets and clues, letting it get developed by the backgrounds of the characters. Yeah, He's Not Your Problem says, no one cares about the history of your world, right? This is a quote from my friend Enrique, the newbie DM, when I was talking to him about tips for new players. And he was like, no one cares. Like, no one cares about your history of your religions, and no one cares about the thing going up on the mountain, and no one cares about the 20,000 year history or whatever happened here. They care about what they're doing in their game right now. They care about what's in front of them. And I think that when you're building your campaign for your home group, that's really important. It's very funny because I was working on Grendelroot and Ruins of the Grendelroot, which is my last Kickstarter, my new book of adventures that's coming out either later this year or early next. We'll see how it goes, but it's well underway. And I just finished all the chapters about the history, and I was like, man, it's like 20 pages of history. It's I forget, it's 10,000 words or so. It's a fair number of words. About like literally a 1,000,000-year history of the mountain. But it's like, the difference here is like I'm writing it for people to read and enjoy. I'm not expecting players are going to care that much. I am putting it there because I loved it, right? And I hope that it sort of spurns the imagination of the DMs who read it. So that's a thought. So hopefully that answers your question about what you would do to prep. The answer is you're more likely to need all 8 steps than some of the other types of games where you have things that are built for you. And I think the 8 steps are still where you want to focus your attention, because they focus on the next game, and that's what really matters. The next game matters. The game after that, you'll figure out after that. Let's go back to our Sublime here. So we have scenes, but I'm not really worried about that. We have so secrets and clues. So here is one of the things I want to do when we think about those reskinnable pieces. The Black Death. The Black Death is imbued with the power of a great old one, Warlock. What else is a good secret? The Sage. The Sage, the senior member of the Scarlet Brotherhood, ordered the deaths of Bleth's parents by calling upon the Black Death. I was going to write a piece of lore for that, and I might try, but I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to. What else? We have only 4 secrets, and we need 10. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That looks right. What other secrets and clues can the characters discover while aboard the Emperor of the Waves? Tamarot's fate. Whoops, what the hell just happened? I hit something. Tamarot's fate is out there somewhere. What other? There is some sort of connection between the cultists of the Chain God. They find a painting of an acid kraken. A map in Aquan. What else? What other things do I need to sort of prepare for the other sessions? So I've been running Abbey at the Isle for my Wednesday group, but I don't think that there's anything there so much. Let's see, the power on the island. The power on the island above the Endless Nadir is raw. Priests. That's not a great secret. The point is that, like, the island is this raw, untapped power where, like, the priests on the Abbey of the Isle are have a more structure to how they're calling upon it, and thus they're not mutated quite as badly as, like, the creatures that are here. The creatures on the Emperor were once human. The creatures on the island are far more primal, and far older. They're a bunch of chul. Yeah, the Hangwin and the Kutoa have an easier time. They create their gods. Maybe those final enemies, Sahuagin, have a plan to bind the Black Death. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much I'm going to tie the Black Death and the Tharzadun stuff into the Sahuagin or not. It might be that because they worship Sokola, right? And I don't mind, like, it's okay to have multiple plots. Like, not everything needs to tie back to the same thing. But maybe, like, the energy that's emanating off of it is what sort of fired the Sahuagin up to the point where they went into that frenzy. That could be. I think that is probably a secret for another day, though, because I don't think there's not really much going on with the Sahuagin here. Let's see. Twitch chat. Can somebody tell me how many moons the world of Greyhawk has? That'd be something, because they're going to see more moons. Like, they go out there and they're like, what world? Like, they traveled through the storm, and as the storm kind of breaks, they look and see that they are in a different world, or they're on a borderland world. Like, the stars are misaligned, like their direction is different. That basically going through the sea means traveling through a portal, but you don't see it until you're already through it. Give me ground in my throat. 2 moons, so maybe they see a third moon. 3 moons. Thank you for looking that up, Snark Knight. Luna and Selene. I like that because it lets me teach a little bit about Greyhawk as well. Orths, yeah. Orth's moon, Selene, cool. And in fact, the first and second planets of the geosystem, with Liga being the third. From Earth, planets behind Liga appear to be the naked eye as wandering stars. Interesting. What else? Got room for one more secret. I don't know. This is where it's good to have 10 secrets, because you really got to dig deep into your brain to think of like the final couple of secrets. The Endless Nadir. The Endless Nadir is a tear to one of the lowest layers of the abyss, where the chained god is bound. So there we have our secrets and clues. That's kind of I'll tell you that if you have nothing else, the strong start and the secrets and clues get you pretty far. Any secrets about the safe? So I have a note that talks about that already has Ida Oland's the fact that Ida Oland gave up people of Saltmarsh. But I would probably put a relic in there as well. We can jump down to treasure since we're thinking about it. Oh, the Wand of Entangle. I forgot about that. The tentacle wand that the person will have. Let's go to relics. Think relics. And let's think of a relic here. We'll do order by level range, and we'll jump down to... This is something I like to do. I like to give a relic that has a power on it that is more powerful. The Stinking Cloud Lamp. That's pretty good. Decorated vampiric lamp that casts Stinking Cloud. Oh, look at that. Chipped gnomish pipe that casts Stinking Cloud. That's pretty great, too. Yeah, we'll stick that one in there. That one works as is, right? Oh, what level is Stinking Cloud? Stinking Cloud. Third level spell, so they'll just be getting access to it if they are wizards. But that's not bad. That's a nice little relic. A one-use item that casts Stinking Cloud. If I wanted to be more brutal, I could turn it into Cloud Kill. That's a 5th level. I think we're going to change it to Cloud Kill. And one interesting bit about Cloud Kill, about this pipe, is that perhaps the gnomish captain kept this pipe always in his mouth. And the risk was, if there was ever a mutiny, he would just kill everyone. He would just go, and the Cloud Kill would come out and kill the crew. So it was sort of his, what do they call it? Deterrent. His version of a nuclear deterrent. So the main NPC I need to worry about here is the villain. And I would like him to tie him to the characters. I would love it that the characters know him. But I don't know which character it ties in well with. I was thinking of having it tie to Dave, who's a Triton monk and fisher, but he wouldn't know. He knows about the Endless Nadir. But he could have a brother or a sister. And the sister the sister that went off when they were all kind of doing mercenary work. What is one option? Another one is, and I'm trying to remember who it worked for. I think this was Jay, the cleaner. Who was it? I just deleted it. Quallen the cleaner is who Jerry worked for. But that doesn't make much sense that, that Jerry. So whoever this was would be the former either like captain or commander, second in command of the ship. And she has been twisted by, I think I had it in the notes. I had it in the handout. Let's see if I can find the handout, because I might just have to go with that, or somebody that's tied to that. I heard a kitty. Let's see. I know it's real exciting watching me navigate files. Sunday let's see, it was Wednesday Saltmarsh. Emperor of the Waves. I don't think this is going to open. Oh, look at that. It opens. I'll be damned. Never mind. It's not going to open because I wrote it in Apple Pages instead of Word, like a numbskull, and I didn't save it as PDF, so I can't open it. So who's it going to be? I think we're going to have it be Dave's sister. Now let's pull up a random name here. Names. Sulin. And she went by White Storm. Sulin White Storm. What is it called when you are like a brother or sister in the same hatchery, right? Are Tritons born of, are they born of eggs? Clutches, is that what they call them? A shoal. Tritons born in the same clutch are kith. Look at that. That'll work. So that's the main NPC. Don't really have to worry about anything else that's going on. Now, we have our monsters, and that's all set. Ettercaps, Maw Demons, Varghouls, Warlock of the Great Old One. We have a couple of magic items, a Javelin of Lightning, a Wand of Entangle, and a chipped gnomish pipe that casts Cloud Kill. Some big items, but that's okay. The one other thing is, so it's possible that the characters, this might go back, we might have to do more secrets and clues. It is possible that the characters make their way back to Saltmarsh. And if they do, Zolek, the vampire that they released, might have new information for them. What information might he have? So has he yet infiltrated? Has he yet infiltrated the Scarlet Brotherhood? I'm not sure. He probably hasn't yet found the sage, but he is on his way, and he might know some information about the sage. But But I'm wondering if, like, he had his people go out and his interrogator went out and then he charmed them. You know, what did he find out? I think he might have found out that one of Bleth's contacts was actually working for the Sage. So was it Nolan or was it Artis? We're gonna roll randomly. On a 1, 2, 3, Nolan was working for the Scarlet Brotherhood. 4, 5, or 6 was Artis. 4, Artis, who works at the Wicker Goat, is actually an agent. And she was the one that slipped poison into she works for the Sage. And she poisoned what's his name? Skellen Prime Waters wine. Yeah, so there's a couple of Scarlet Brotherhood things. I think we're going to play the rest of this by ear. Like, what does Zola... Yeah, so we have Zolek, right, is this vampire that's now free in Saltmarsh. And he said, I'm going to help figure out who the Scarlet Brotherhood is for you. And while you're gone on your missions, I'll be, interrogating people. And we're going to figure things out. And he is using Metha Jewel Singer, who is now a thrall of Zolek, vampire spawn of Zolek. As his way, she is out there. She is the legal authority to interrogate people, but then he can kind of step in and charm them, and then figure out the truth. So he's far more effective at it. But, he so far hasn't quite narrowed down who it is. But I think the one thing he has learned is that so far, I don't know if we've learned that Elendar Fireborn, his daughter is being held. The only two members of the council that are not compromised by the Scarlet Brotherhood, as far as I know, are Anders Solmar and Manistred Copperlocks. The truth is Anders is under compromise, and Manistred Copperlocks isn't yet, but her second in command has been converted over to the Scarlet Brotherhood. So that's where that stands. So let's see. Thinking back, I got a couple minutes left. Is there anything? I feel, this game is pretty straightforward. Oh, one thing I didn't show is I do have a little bit of Dwarven Forge that I set up for this game. Where is my... Here we go. So this was from my Wednesday game, but I'm going to bring the same stuff to my Sunday game. I got to remember to bring the monolith. Not just one little room, but lots of tentacles, and there's the the Kraken miniature in the back, but it's going to be a whale. We'll just call it a whale. This is kind of a high level view of it. I tell you, I love these single terrain tray Dwarven Forge builds where you can just build like a little room and put a lot of accessories in it and kind of drop it on them when they get to that part of the map. It's really cool, and they pack well for trips. There's that again. Yeah, I'm gonna have a lot to talk about when we get to Abbey at the Isle. I ran an Abbey at the Isle game, one of the games, I guess 2 sessions of Abbey at the Isle. For my other group so far, and session 2 was a bit of a downer, so we'll get to, I think I learned a lot running that. I actually wrote multiple articles based on that, and we'll talk about that a lot when we get to that part of the adventure, which might start next week. We'll see how far we get in this. I think they're going to get off the Emperor today. I don't think that'll be trouble, and we will see where things go. But it is just about 11 o'clock, so I think we're going to call it a day. And I will go get all of my stuff ready. I've got a lot of different things to bring to the table today. Acrylic sheets for the map, and the Dwarven Forge, and big pile of minis, and my books, and all my crap. It's definitely not the lazy DM style of, hey, bring like a 3x5 card, and you can run a D&D game. So I want to thank everybody for hanging out in chat today. I want to, for those of you who back Sly Flourish on Patreon at patreon.com/SlyFlourish, there's a link down below in the notes. I want to thank you in particular for your support to help keep this show going and keep the equipment up and keep the website running and all that sort of stuff. You guys help pay for all of the administration that occurs behind the scenes for Sly Flourish. And yeah, so we will see where things go. And next week I will talk about how it went, and we will see where it goes from here on out. So I want to thank you again for coming, and get out there and play some D&D.